And Roddy, farming is obviously under the big whip of the new safety laws and regulations as of beginning of April, but you guys are also wearing it.
Yeah, well, who would have thunk? It's pretty much everyone's getting caught up in it, and there's always pretty much an aspect of everyone's industry that you fall under. I mean, the obvious things, just the safety of your team and the environment that you're providing. You know, is there adequate safety equipment? Is there appropriate signage, etc.? That's always been part of it, and there's always been, and so there's nothing really changed there. But what is changing is the level of responsibility at the individual is now become under the microscope, and we deal with a number of chemicals that have some quite toxic properties. Obviously, they're in our mortuaries. They're there for a reason. They're designed to
do a job.
Kill bacteria, etc. And so to do that, they are ecotoxic, so they have an impact on the environment, but they're toxic at the medical level for the embalmers. And there's been no studies about long-term exposure to the chemicals we have, and so the new health and safety requirements are looking at a preventative, as in how do you make sure that there isn't going to be a problem in 20, 30, 40 years' time. And the industry's been very, very good self-regulating in the sense that embalmers are very aware of it. They don't want to be working with something in their career that is going to cause them a problem. I mean, asbestos is the greatest example of something that was designed to be practical and useful in the building industry, and yet it's killed a lot of people, 30, 40 years down the track. So for us, we've just had to go through and sit all of the exams again for the chemical handler certificates. And the interesting thing is that these certificates actually catch wide swaths of the population. People like panel beaters who have anything with acetone in it, people that like farmers who are dealing with any of the major chemicals that we used to treat for things like foot rot, even the drenches. All of these things have elements, even if they're not particularly toxic as a preparation, their ingredients may be. And so what we're finding is that we've had to do a lot of research, and there are folks out there who can help you with that and sit tests again. And all of a sudden we're reading, for the first time in my life, I'm sitting there with an ingredients label and going, you know,
what does that mean?
What does that mean? And then I find out that it's got the ability to give me 3-headed babies, and that sort of thing. And that's the problem we've got is that as a director of a company, as an owner of a company, I'm in the gun now for my employees' good health in the long term. And so we have taken steps not only to ensure that if something goes wrong, if there's a chemical spill or there's an accident, that we have all the appropriate safety gear, the personal protective equipment, but it's now my job to ensure that my staff actually wear it. Because it's one thing to tell a guy on a building site to wear a hard hat, it's another thing to make sure that the hard hat's actually on his head.
It was not much good if it's not.
And this is the thing, and I think in farming they've had this issue with helmets on quads and on motorbikes. And nowadays most professional farmers realise that there is no excuse for not maintaining or at least enforcing regulation. And that's the big change for us, is that we're having to go, it's not good enough just to...
Are you suggesting that it's not nanny state, that you actually as a business owner condone this and go along with it wholeheartedly?
I condone it. Look, is it a pain in my backside?
Yes, it
is. Without a doubt. New Zealand was built on should be right. Okay. Well, no longer that is the case. The government is not going to stand for it. And let's face it, my team are often friends, and in some situations they are family. So it is a good thing as a good employer to think beyond the pain in the backside factor and go, you know what? If it takes an extra half an hour to complete a task, but it means that person is protected for their long-term health down the track, then why wouldn't I do it? All things come back to, if it was me in that situation and it was my health and I was worried about it, why should I expect them not to be equally concerned?
Yeah, so it's not legislation for legislation's sake, it's actually helping you. And you can say to your staff, hey, listen, it's not my role here. I mean, it's law, but I'm going to make sure that I implement it.
Yeah, absolutely. But on the flip side of that coin is I'm well aware as a company director that it doesn't matter how much I jump up and down and tell people what to do it, unless I'm actively managing it, and if we were to get audited, then I'm the one ultimately responsible. So yes, it's an exercise in covering my own backside, but at the same time, it's a good exercise because we deal with things that are nasty, and let's face it, we don't know what the cumulative effects are in 30 years' time, so let's ensure that they're as mitigated best as possible. And I think I can't think of an industry out there that hasn't got this issue, and that the new legislation, while it's not scaremongering, the new legislation has some serious teeth. And they do expect you, it's not good enough. Ignorance is no longer an excuse. Think of it the way IID is. They don't care if you didn't know you had to pay the tax. It's your responsibility to pay the tax, line in the sand. And I think with health and safety, that's where they're going now. It's your responsibility to know. So I'm encouraging my team to do the work, to sit the exams, to get the tickets. Yes, it's costly, yes, it takes time. But at the end of the day, if we've made an effort and we've done the education, then the government auditors also look very favourably upon that. You know, the Lord helps those who help themselves.
I love your parallel with asbestos. So, Roddy, thank you very much indeed.